your host, Robert Gaines, and today we have guest Maree Santarossa. She's coming all the way in from New South Wales, Australia. And it's what, 3:30 in the morning there?
Hi everyone. Yes, it is. It's 3:30 a.m. and yeah, it's still quite warm. I think it's about 25 degrees Celsius, but I'm not quite sure what that is in Fahrenheit. So if I start to sweat, I haven't got a fan on. So just I apologize for the sweating.
No problem. That's going to be funny for all of us in the States because we're going through a big cold snap, even here in Central Florida. True story. I was out walking the
Oh,
neighborhood this morning and a snake fell out of the tree. So it's so cold that the snakes can't even move. I picked it up
wow.
thinking it was dead, and then I realized it wasn't, and I put it back down pretty quick. I didn't hold it for very long, but yeah, it's we've got unseasonably cold weather here in Central Florida. We almost never get freezes, but we've got a lot of invasive reptile species that they don't do well with the cold. And then of course the north, um, they haven't broken a sweat in a month, I'm sure.
Well, look, on the weekend it's going to be about 38 degrees on I think it's on Saturday and
Wow.
39 on Sunday. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. That's it's quite hot. And we have a humidity here, we're subtropical here in the Northern Rivers, and it's about you get about 80% humidity. So that's the
Wow.
killer.
Very
Yeah.
humid. Well, Marie, you really surprising for me because I was very interested when I had you on the first time to talk about trade shows. It's something that I had lightly been involved in. I was very curious about, but the part that surprised me is the episode did exceedingly well. People were really hungry for that information. And then when I looked around on YouTube after that, there's not there wasn't a whole lot of trade show information out there. So I thought, wow, that's why people tuned in because there's not a lot of people talking about this. So thank you so much for coming on before and sharing that information because it really resonated with a lot of people. It got a lot of views, Marie.
Look, my pleasure. It's I've been doing it for a long time, well, over 20 years now. And the a lot of people don't know about trade shows unless you've either exhibited or you're in a business that has to go to a trade show. And when I talk to my friends and family about trade shows, they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that that existed." So it is a niche sector, an industry, and once people are opened up to it and they get very interested in very quickly because you know, some small businesses, you've got what I call a B2B show. I specialize in B2B more so than B2C, which is business to consumer. And there's a lot of small businesses out there that go to those B2C consumer shows, so they get interested in what they can do at a show.
Well, and plus it's very easy to spend a lot of money on those. So for a small to medium sized business, the stakes are very high. And I think a lot of people, well, I don't think, I know a lot of people go into that and get a booth and get involved and they have no idea what they're doing. Not zero. And even if the booth, and there's that, it's true, even for if the booths are aesthetically pleasing, there's still, what I found out from you, there's still a dozen other things they can get wrong and they could spend a fortune and not move the needle at all. And the thing that really opened my eyes that we talked about last time was placement. Now, obviously,
Mhm.
that's true. We when we think about opening a pizzeria or a storefront, it's location, location, location. But I don't think people realize it's equally as important in a trade show. Now, obviously, somebody with a more modest budget, Marie, is not going to be able to get the prime spot. But
Mhm.
one question I had for you on the
Mhm.
list is where do they definitely don't want to be? So if you have and it's going to be hard to do this visually, but if you have a layout of a
Mhm.
conference, where do you definitely don't want to be where you won't get any people coming by at all?
Okay, so there is a system to choosing a booth. And humans like to be congregate with other humans, and they tend to move into the center of a building of a trade show. And what I found is doing these trade shows for such a long time, that stands on the outer edges on the walls of a building, sides and back, are usually bypassed, and also right at the front. Now, what happens right at the front is that you've got an attendee who's coming into a show. They've just, signed in and they're walking through, and they haven't decompressed. And what happens is that in a trade show, you'll hit a trade show and it'll be very exciting, and a person needs time to decompress. And when you've got to stand right at the front, the attendee is still decompressing and they're trying to orientate themselves, and they will actually skip those stands because they're not orientated to the show as yet. And as they move into the show, they decompress a little bit more and they start to be aware of their surroundings. So I would suggest don't do stands that are right at the back of the trade show, or the sides and at the front.
And it's funny as you described that, what I saw in my head was because I'm an avid fisherman, is how water flows. So
Mhm.
it's very, if you're at the intro to the exhibition hall, that's the fastest rushing part of the river. And it's unnatural for a human being to stand in a place where people are zooming by. People are zooming in, zooming in, zooming in. So you're caught in that flow. So just even the momentum of human beings is faster, like the very nozzle of a fire hose. And it's just going to be a natural tendency to want to try to push yourself into. And likewise, those dark corners of that big
Mhm.
room are the very still waters where there's almost no activity. So you have the fast rushing water in the beginning, and then you have the stagnant water at the corner, and then which is the fish behavior is the same way. They congregate all in the center, So that's funny. I'm thinking about, yeah, that's exactly where the because I like to river fish too, and that's so that goes with the flood. That makes a lot of sense,
Mm.
and it's amazing how many people will spend. I mean, an exhibition, you could easily, I mean, just on your display alone, you could spend what a house costs. I mean, if you're a big brand,
Mm.
it's nothing to put together. And some of the bigger exhibitors might do a display just for that event. So when they tear it down, they're never going to use it again. And you have a great way to consult with people to have something that they can use and make it effective as far as a kit. What do you tell people as far as, I know it has a lot to do with budget, so it's going to be hard to get specific, but are there a few things you recommend every time so that what they have is usable and then they can move it around and use it for different events?
Look, trade shows have always they're innovators. So there's always things that are coming out, systems that come out that you can use to build your exhibition stand, and they get modular all the time. And one of the things, I'll give you an example. One of the pharmaceutical companies I work with, they have big budgets, but they also get a lot of attention, and they attract people with their smaller booths because they are well designed and they use a framing system which they can put a graphic on, a fabric banner on, and they can change those banners all the time. So your graphics are very important, and also one of the things I like to do with my clients is stand up. You need to claim your space, and to do that, you need to show your the trade show attendees that you have a space and this is your space. And one of the things to do that is to change the color of the flooring. So if you're just a, not just, but if you're a standard booth, and you don't want to do too much, you can do graphics, but also you can hire different colored flooring, maybe carpet, and you can use that to delineate yourself from other booths. And that works really well because here I am, I'm different to other booths. If you've got booths either side of you, and they've got the same carpet color as the show, then they don't stand out. But you will if you change the color of your flooring.
I didn't think about the floor, but that makes a great way to encapsulate a space. And
Hmm.
trade shows too are obviously you want to go to a trade show that's going to put you in front of your target, your demographic. And then I guess there's a second, educate me on this, Marie. I guess there's a second layer to that. Not only do you want to be at the right place
Mm.
where your people are, the tribe that you're looking to connect with will be, but you also need to make sure that the booth and your pitch and the people and everything there also will attract that because I know you've said before that you're a big fan of people working the booth and working the crowd, and I think that's brilliant advice. But also too, they need to the structure and the look of the booth needs to attract that specific demographic. So we talk about sometimes marketing as a
Mm.
filtration system. You don't want to give away candy and now you've got a bunch of kids and you're not getting leads and things like that. So can you speak to setting it up in a way to be the power to be the flower that attracts that perfect bee that you're looking for?
Okay. Well, regardless of how much budget you have or what type of trade show you were going to, especially if you've only got a small stand, you still can punch above your weight. Okay. But it doesn't trade show does not start excuse me, it doesn't start the minute you hit the trade show floor. Okay. It starts the minute that you decide to do a trade show. And one of the things you need to do is the research for a show. So first off, you need to know that your ideal client is going to be at that trade show. Uh, a lot of clients I find will go to a trade show because they've just done it for so many years and people expect them to be there, or they go because their opposition are there, or they go because management says we have to be at this show. So you need to find out that that trade show has the people that you want to sell to. Secondly, you want to be able to pre-market to your ideal client before you go to that show. So you're trying to create a buzz before you go uh, and exhibit,
And Marie,
and
would
that
that
will
involve a, oh, I'm sorry, would that involve a
yes.
call to action? Just, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it would. So what I would do, the one thing that so if I was a manager of a company that owns uses a printer, a commercial printer, okay, some of those printing machines are millions of dollars. Now, if I were a procurement manager for that printing company, and I am very busy, constantly busy, and I think to myself, I've got to go to this trade show, but I want to do some research before I go. I like to look at the exhibitors and their websites. Now, if I see an exhibitor that's got a dedicated page for that trade show that says, this is what we're going to be displaying. Would you like to book a meeting with us, pre-book a meeting with us before the show? Now, I think to myself, oh, these people are organized. Two, they value my time. And three, I know that at 10 o'clock on such and such date, I'm going to go see this product being demonstrated. And for a very busy procurement manager, they would go, "Oh, yes, I'm going to book this." And who are they going to go with at the end of the day, when they've seen all these other printing machines, the person that's been, organized and values their time, they'll go with you. So it's you've got to start early. You've got to send out emails. You've got to make sure your social media and what your emails are saying also match up to what your booth will be. Then you have to train all your staff to sell because it's not like it's a different selling, and your staff are going to be discouraged because some people just walk past you and you think to yourself, well, this is a bit. it's a bit disheartening because no one wants to stop and talk to you, even though it's a trade show. So you've got to have the right training, then you've got to have a booth that attracts, and the best type of booth always has a theme. And I'm not talking about a beach theme or a surfing theme or, a log cabin theme. I'm talking about a theme where you might have a campaign that you're working on, and you take the campaign and you put it onto your stand. So your emails, your social media, your staff are trained, and your booth is all themed. And they are the most successful trade shows. Then there's the lead capture. Lead capture is the most important thing that you will do at a trade show. If you're not capturing leads, then it's a waste of money of being at that show.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
What are we spending all this money for? So before we get into lead capture, which
Hmm.
is very important, let me ask this because I think about the psychology of tip jars, for instance, and
Hmm.
this is going to be relevant to the trade shows. So when you're in a place and the tip jar is empty, it's natural for people to tip less. Let's say a
Mm.
musician is playing. Let's say they're playing at a trade show and they've got their little pickle jar out there. And if there's no money in there, there's probably not going to be money in there because
Mm.
people need to see that. So obviously people that are a little sharper, they understand the psychology, they put a few dollars in there and that's going to attract more dollars. Same thing with a trade show booth. If nobody's there, people are going to have less tendency to congregate. But if there's people there,
Mhm.
people are going to say, "Oh, what's going on over there?" And there's a song from many years ago by Bob Seger. There's a line where he says, "Everybody wants into the crowded line." So, and people want to be where people are. And I
Yeah.
think that's one reason why you suggest at
Mm.
least the more charismatic of the group be out there working the crowd and maybe bringing people,
Mm.
looking at the badges, identifying if they are the target, and then trying to get them back to the booth. And by nature of having those other human beings there, that's
Mm.
going to attract more and more and more. And you might even have some Confederates. You might have some family come dressed as participants in there, and just have them stand around because activity breeds activity and crowds breed crowds. So I just wanted to throw that in there. But in obviously once you've got them in the booth, now we're talking about lead capture because at the end of the day, if you spend all that money and you're
Mm.
not setting up new prospects that are suspects that become prospects that become customers, then you've spent all that money for nothing. And so I'm sorry, go ahead with the lead
On
capture because that's the thing that everybody is ultimately after.
Absolutely, it is lead capture and quality leads. And you're right about engagement. Engagement is also very important because you want people to you attract them, and then you attract them, you engage them, you educate them, and then you sell to them, and that's what you want. Okay, that's the basically the crux of a trade show. Now, lead capture in this day and age, just collecting business cards or scanning a QR code off a, a lanyard where with the attendee's name is okay, but it's time to automate that system. And if you want to punch above your weight and you want to play with the big players, what you need to do is automate your system. So you should look at a system where you can qualify them quickly and also send out information while they're still at the booth so they can see that you're proactive and they understand, and an attendee will understand that you're efficient and that you respect their time. Okay, so a lot of people, they don't send out emails, they don't follow up, but the key to this now is to basically engage them the minute they get to the stand. You qualify them, you send them information that's relevant to them, and you follow up with another email within the time of the trade show saying, let's book a time to discuss this further. So it's all about containing that process at the show. And then you've got time after the show to follow up. Okay.
And Marie, are we
So,
talking about iPads or laptops or what
yep,
technologically? What's the best lead capture mechanism?
there's so many out there. Now, with your, you can do this with your phone now, is capture leads. You can, but I would dedicate, I do an iPad, I do a tablet, uh, and if you're a bigger stand, look, I'll give you an example. Every year I go to this show, and God bless them, they do a roaring trade. Now, this is not one of my clients, but it's a stand that's next to my clients. And I see them all the time, and I always go and speak to them after the show. This last year, I should say, last year, I said to them, "How'd you go with all your leads?" And they said, "Oh, we've got about 30 leads." And I thought, "Well, that's not a lot." And he said, "But they're quality leads. We know these guys are going to buy." And I said, "How did you capture them?" He said, "Well, we started scanning the attendees' lanyards, but we got so busy, we're just taking photos." And I'm thinking, oh, well, first off, taking photos of the lanyards are, you know, somebody's going to have to go and find their details and research them. And I thought to myself, it's just crazy because this booth is so busy all the time. And they should have a dedicated person they can hand off to that can take details. So if you're a bigger stand and you don't have a dedicated person doing the lead capturing, so you've got a salesperson, going through the motion, you've engaged them, you've qualified them, right? Then you hand it over to somebody who can take more details and send those details and send information of your products. So if you're large and you don't have a dedicated lead capture person, then you're missing out. You're just wasting time.
Absolutely. Well, like, what are we here for if we're not here to it's all about, at the end of the day, it's about
Mm,
conversion. Even I started reading a lot more about Dan Kennedy, lately, and
mm,
he doesn't care about likes and followers and subscribers. And,
mm,
sometimes that's painful to hear, but, his focus is right. If you don't have conversions,
mm,
you don't have a company. Now, I realize this is not your specialty, Marie, but for the people out there that want to exhibit, and let's say they have an organic honey farm, and they're going
mm,
to come in, and it's not like a flea market. I've seen these people at trade shows, and they're
mm,
actually going to bring product to sell, which is not normally
mhm.
usually what we talk about when it comes to trade shows. But there are some times where they make sales on site. Do you have any tips or advice for people that are going to bring their inventory with them? Any tricks about how they should handle that differently?
Yeah, you should actually. You still have to capture leads, okay? People mightn't buy. They might try your product, and this is the thing. There's a lot of tire kickers out there. You have the same expression, right? Tire
Yeah, that's
kickers.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
We say the same thing. I
They're-
said that I'm trying to sell my house. I've had a lot of tire kickers. Yeah.
yeah. As you well know, selling a house. uh, you've got a lot of tire kickers out there and a lot of people who want things for free. Okay. You have to be discerning now. It's like having merchandise, it's like having swag on your stand. And you don't want to give your swag out. You don't want to give your swag out to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, right? Because they're not, or, most of them are not your target audience. Okay. You're not, you haven't qualified them. So when you're doing a B2C show, you don't want to give away all your product. You want to make it a little bit harder to get. Hey, and you want to qualify these people before you give something out for free. So I try and qualify somebody who comes up to your stand to buy your product. Oh, here's a little bit of a taste. What do you think? And try not to give away anything free unless they buy something, okay? And but you still want to get those email addresses. So if you don't have a payment system that's taking an email address, then you are wasting your time.
That makes a lot of sense. I was thinking about some of the shows that we have here. We have trade shows, and some are around selling products.
Mm.
And the joke always was, if you want to, because they run them on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and they're like, if you want a good deal, go an hour or two. Well, you have to really go 2 hours before the close of the last day because these vendors don't want to take all that inventory back home. So we'll hit them about two. Because if you go an hour
Mm.
before they close, a lot of them are already so exasperated they've already packed up and left. But if you go 2 or 3 hours before close, you can make a bunch of deals because they got to put all that inventory back on the truck, carry it
Yep.
all the way back to, some
Yeah.
far-flung state that they drove in from. So yeah, sometimes we do that on purpose to get a good deal, go late. And for some of these people, it was a stretch to even pay for the booth. It was a risk.
Mm.
I know somebody, a friend of a friend in New York, they spent 30,000. Considering the size of their business, that was a lot of money for them. I
Mm.
think they did very well. They've done trade shows a lot over the years, but 30 grand was that's quite a lot. If you
That
if
is a
you
lot.
went and didn't get a lead, I mean, here that could potentially be somebody's salary for the year. 30
Mm.
grand, you could have an employee. That's a VA, that's a virtual assistant's a salary for the
Mm.
year. So, and it's easy to spend, multiples of that. But just in general, Marie, what can somebody do to make the most of a trade show? Just some general tips.
Uh, First off, you need to you need to have a budget. So you can't just go, oh, and your exhibition stand should be part of your marketing budget because it's part of the promotional pack. Okay, so you're promoting your business. So you should already have set aside in your marketing budget something for trade shows. Okay, so if you're a business, if you're only starting out, you need to start building up to going to trade shows. You can't just go, oh, I'm just going to chuck money at a trade show. You're going to have to define it within your marketing budget already. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you need to plan. If you're not planning your trade show, if you're just going, oh, okay, I'm going to turn up and I'll just, you know, pull up a couple of banners and I'll sit there and I'll take business cards and I'll scan some attendee lanyards and and hope for the best. That's not going to work either. Okay, so planning and knowing what you want to get out of the show. So you need to have a clear goal of what you want to do, whether it be I want to get 100 quality leads, or I want to sell, $1 million, or I want to launch a product and get it out on social media and get more followers. You have to have a goal because if you don't have a goal, you won't know how to measure yourself if you're successful. And a lot of trade shows, a lot of exhibitors don't measure themselves and they keep doing the same thing over and over again and they get the same result. It might be a good result, but you know what? Wouldn't you want a better result every time you do something? And that's
And
what you need to do.
And we've been talking about the physical logistics and the appearance and layout and
Mm.
location, but also too that's important are the people that are sent. A lot of times for a trade show, and there are professional, and I didn't know
Mm.
about this
Yeah.
until recently, but there are actually professional people you can hire that will run your trade show, and they know how to maximize trade shows. So technically,
Mm.
that could be outsourced by people that do
Yeah.
that for a living, and they have a system to capture the leads. So some of that can be outsourced. But a lot of times with the trade shows, they just send whoever's available. They might send a person from the marketing department who's not a people person. Some work from home technician. They're pale as a sheet of
Mm.
paper, and they go in there and I've seen them at the trade shows. They're in the corner hiding, hoping nobody asks them a question. So who you send is as important as anything else. And I really like what you said before about getting that charismatic person to work the room and grab people and
Mm.
and get them over and get them
Yeah.
interested. Because if you think of a lot of great physical businesses out there, that are in high traffic areas.
Mm.
That's what the good businesses do. Even malls sometimes will have
Mm.
stalkers come out and try to pull you in and, get you to buy
Yeah.
a $100,000 watch or something, But I think it's pretty brilliant
Mm.
to have somebody charismatic, and that's people respond to that. So yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of times people just send their most shy people to the booth, and then and the other thing too, and of course we've got to bring this up because of the generation gap.
Mm.
I've been to a lot of exhibitions. Even I'm in Florida, so I've been a lot of gun shows, and there are booths just full of young people staring at their phone, and
Mm.
that, I mean, a lot of booths. I would say
Mm.
at any given point, 8 out of 10 booths has at least one person staring at their phone. So,
Yeah.
good management of that, and maybe put their devices in a lockbox or something. I don't know. What do you suggest about that? What can a company do to make sure they're sending their best and brightest to represent themselves?
Training. Training is the key. Training and also scheduling. So you need to train your staff to actually sell from a trade show, from an exhibition stand, and it could be, a couple of every week or so leading up to the show. We're going to practice engagement techniques. We're going to talk about, your elevator pitch, and because you want to be able to pull people in and then keep them in for a little while. And as I said to you, attract, engage, educate, and and you want to be able to educate those people so they've had a quality time with you. So training your staff is really important, and also scheduling on a stand. So if you've got a massive stand, there should always be a stand manager, and if you've got a lot of staff and you've got one person that's a real is really good at managing people and scheduling and keeping people on track, use that person to schedule breaks, schedule lead capture, schedule when they go out into the crowd and what we call go fishing for to bring people back in. And that's what you want to do. You want to do training and you want to do scheduling. And what you want to do is make sure that you are supporting your staff at the trade show, because if you're inundated and your staff are frazzled and they don't feel supported, then you're not going to get any you're not going to get a quality engagement, because they're going to be sitting on their phones, they're going to be exhausted, they're going to look exhausted. So you actually need to support your staff. And if you're only one person, then you need to also support yourself and have breaks and make sure that you're getting your pitch right and you're training yourself to engage attendees as they walk past.
And if it's a 2-day event, Marie, we're talking about potentially two 12-hour days back to back because you've got
Mhm.
setup,
Yep.
exhibition, and then day two is exhibition and teardown. And
Hmm.
and I've seen people frazzled, and it was the one person worked the booth the whole weekend, and it's Sunday, and they look like they need to be hospitalized. So
Yep.
they definitely need some type of rotating schedule so that they can get a nap, so they can get a break, so they can go get something to eat. But I wanted to pivot back to 40 Projects, your company,
Hmm.
and how do you like to work with clients? Do you have a couple of packages? So when somebody calls, like you're having a discovery call with a new client, how do you walk them through it? Is it more done with you, done for you? You have do-it-yourself packages. So how do you offer your service?
I'm a I'm basically a custom stand builder. So if you're looking for something that's more elevated than just a standard booth, uh, that's what I mainly do. But I also support my clients in finding lead capture systems for themselves and training and techniques at selling at trade shows. But what I like to do is, first off, I want to ask them what their goal is for the trade show, because that helps me design something for them that will get them to that goal, whether it be lead capture, whether it be social media followers or sales. And I also like to know their budget. Because how long is a piece of string? I can give you, if you said, oh, I've got a 6 meter by 6 meter stand. I need to have a basketball hoop on there for engagement. I need this and this and this and this and this, and I want to look like, I want to be look like I'm, competing against Apple. Okay. And then I say, what's your budget? Oh, it's only 20,000. I'm like, well, you're not going to get that. So we're going to have to pare this back, and I'm going to have to give you, um, you know, what 20,000 looks like on an exhibition stand. So knowing your budget is really handy, because I can stand there and I can do three or four different designs, and then it's not going to meet your budget. And then secondly, I ask them, what do you want to happen on the stand? Walk me through what you feel a person is going to experience on your stand. So I think of it like this: a snakes and ladders board. Okay, you're going on a journey, or uh, game of life, the board game. I love board games, by the way. So the game of life, right? It's like, okay, I've got, a attendee walks past, they stop and they have a look. So that's your starting point, right? And then you come out and greet them, and you qualify a couple of questions, and then you find out they like a certain product. They've got a pain point they need to have a solution for, and you find out that your product is that solution. So you walk them over and you show them the product, or you demonstrate the product, and then you have a bit more of a conversation. Then you bring them to the reception counter, and you take some more details, and you send some brochures, or you provide a brochure, and then you say thanks very much and send them on their way. It's a journey. So think of game of life. What do you want to happen? And you can do this with your small stands and your big stands, but you need to have a clear path of a journey of what that attendee needs to see and experience on your stand. And they're the things that I talk about when somebody rings me. Budget, what's your goal, and the attendee journey.
And next time, Marie, what we'll cover, I'll save a really good question for next time. And I was thinking about the Queen Elizabeth, because she would meet a lot of people, and in booths sometimes it's not just attracting people, it's sometimes getting people to move on so you can get new people in. There's sometimes those tire kickers or hangers on, and I know there's tips and techniques to help them, get on their way so that you can get to that prospect, that, the suspect that you ultimately want to turn into a prospect. But even though you're in Australia, you've got a lot of clients in the United States. So I wanted to let our audience know that you do quite a lot of business here, and people seek you out for your services, because you can do your magic remotely and get them set up from where you are. So there's no limitations as far as locations. Now you've got some exciting stuff coming on in 2026. Now that we're deep into January, do you want to share that as we do the wrap up?
Well, as you know, Robert, I've been writing my book, and it's called Stand Out and Sell More at Trade Shows. And I'm in the final stages of editing it, and I'm hoping to launch it in March. So it takes you from an exhibitor's journey, and I have tips and tricks in there. I have, checklists and things you can do that help you exhibit a trade show, and making sure that you're successful. Because the one thing I want people to be is successful. There's no reason why spending 100 grand and not getting something back. And so that's my book. And last year I was, and in this, I love technology. I think technology is fantastic. And in this day and age of AI, I thought, you know what, I need to build a new system for myself to manage custom exhibition stands globally, because we work globally. And So I got onto a software called Replit, and I started to make this system. And I thought to myself, oh, you know what? I could do this for other custom stamp builders because a lot of people just still use spreadsheets. And then I thought to myself, hang on here, my clients need this thing. They really need this thing to manage their custom exhibition stands, and some of them do them globally. And so I've started a product called Expo Kit AI, and it combines the project management, engagement, lead capture, follow ups, and the measurement of your of success for your booth. And so you can run it as a system and not just a one-off exhibition stand every show you do. So that's exciting, and I'm working in developer with a developer at the moment, and so I'm really excited about that because I really believe that once you have a system down for your trade shows, it's so much easier, and you take the stress out of it, and then you go to a trade show and you start selling your product, and that's what you want.
Book launch and a software launch all in the same year. That's very ambitious, Marie. That's
I know.
fantastic. Well, of course,
I-
you've got to come back in March so that we can talk about the book. We'll have you read a passage, give us just
Mm.
a few spoilers, a little bit of taste of what they'll get. And any questions, we can of course continue the I'm going to close down the live, but anything you want to say in closing, and then we can continue the conversation on Zoom.
Okay, I just want to say one thing that if you go to a trade show, I want you to capture leads, but I also want you to follow up because 80% of people don't follow up on the leads they capture from a trade show. That is a lot of people. 80% don't follow up on the leads they capture at a trade show.
That's unbelievable. And I'm having that conversation with an entrepreneur friend of mine now that's been sitting on top of probably 60,000 in profit of old leads and old customers there's no system there to contact old customers, and yeah, it drives me crazy because it's just money sitting in the corner, and as those leads age, the quality drops. It has about the
Yeah.
lifespan of a banana. you
Hmm.
know, you
Yeah.
know, you
Yeah.
don't eat it, take care of it. It's the banana gets bad very quick. Leads are the
It
same way.
does.
They get ancient very, very, very quick. Well, thank you so much, Marie. I'll end the stream and we'll continue on Zoom.
Thank you. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you. All right, perfect, Marie. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry I went over. I wanted to make sure we got everything
No.
that we covered all of our angles.